Yes, ma'am. The first question is, you've had an incredible journey in leadership and service. What first inspired you to pursue the path you're on today?
Oh, I think my father. My dad was pertinent to the subject. He was a civil rights activist, and for oh gosh, because back in the 50s, that's long before you were ever even thought of. Um, the civil rights movement back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s was a pretty tough time.
Yes, ma'am.
And he was when he got out of the military, and he actually wrote a book for my grandchildren, so that he for his grandchildren, so they'd have some history. And he talked about
Yes, ma'am.
civil rights and the issues that happened in the military. But when he left the military and he left the South, he was actually born in Georgia. But because of the racial environment there and the Ku Klux Klan and their activity in the area where he lived in Georgia, his dad decided to move the family north. So they moved to Ohio, which is where we grew up. Um, but in his mind, because this is interesting, when he lived in the South, his parents had a farm. They had a farm, and they also had some white sharecroppers who worked some of their property, and they worked together. So he always had a relationship with the kids who were his age, but who were white in the community because they worked together, because they worked the farms together. When he got to the north, and of course segregation was very well, that's the way we lived back in the day. As a matter of fact, when I was a little girl and we'd go visit my grandparents in Louisiana, they lived in New Orleans. We still had segregated drinking fountains. So there were fountains that said colored and white. And so I knew to go to the colored drinking fountain to get a drink of water. The restaurants and the restrooms were all segregated at that point. When we go and visit my grandparents from Ohio. We were in Ohio going south. My dad had to use something called a green book. You familiar with what a green book is?
I've heard of it before, but I don't
Okay.
remember what it's for.
So the green book was a guide for Black people who traveled in the South of where they could, restaurants they could go to, hotels they could stay in, so they could stay out of trouble. So it was kind of a travel guide, if you will, for Black folks, colored folks back in the day that had to travel in the South. So he had to use a green book to make sure he found a place for us to stay, because back then it was like a 3 day trip uh, when you were driving to go that far. So he used that. So the times at that point were difficult, and I fear we're going back there today, but that's a whole nother topic in terms of making sure that we're strong and understand and know our history and who we are and all the things we've overcome. But he was a strong believer in civil rights. He honestly believed that if Black and white people got to know each other, that we could get away from the prejudice and bias that we had. And he was determined to try and make a difference. When veterans couldn't get their benefits when they got out of the military, he went and fought with the Veterans Administration, and we had a family member who was high up in the administration to try and get rights for veterans. But he wanted us to live in an area where the schools were good, where uh, the land was available, and he could build a house for his family. He couldn't get a loan, so it was an area of town where Black people did not live. As a matter of fact, the land he bought, the deed to that land still says that it cannot be sold to colored people. But he got a loan. He had to get a loan in the state of New York. Could not get one in Ohio. Nobody gave him one. He finally be able to buy the property, but then he couldn't find anybody to build the house. So he found somebody in another city, Mr. Martin, who built the house for my dad. But Mr. Martin and my dad had death threats the whole time he was building the house. But he built the house. The night we moved into the house, I was 9 years old. I remember, I'll never forget this. We moved into the neighborhood, and there was a family that was very racist, and I'm sure very involved in the Klan, that lived at the end of the hill, the Hood family. That was actually their name. But he stood outside of our house all night carrying a Winchester rifle while they rode up and down the street, calling him names and threatening him and so on. But he was determined that we were going to stay there. So we did. We integrated the neighborhood. I integrated the school that I went to, the grade school that I went to. We integrated the church that we went to. When my dad died in 1999, he actually integrated the cemetery. That's not too long ago. that happened.
Yeah.
But he was in the Urban League. He spent most of his adult life focusing on getting people to work together and making sure that people had good service. He was an electronics technician, so he tried to do work for free for poor people in the community. All that to say, he really gave me a good background and understanding of the importance of service and leadership. And even in high school, so I got involved in activities and the things I was doing. And my last position in leadership, well, one of my last ones was actually as national president of Delta Sigma Theta. And I'm currently involved in NCNW. I'm on their board of directors and still working in leadership and international affairs. So it took the long answer to the question, and I wanted to give you a little bit of history in terms of
Yes,
what
ma'am.
happened then and where we are today and how different that is. But that sense of serving and leadership, and my dad was also an extremely religious man. It was a Catholic family, and he was the first African American in the Knights of Columbus in that part of the country. He moved all the way to the top level in it. We went to religious schools, so the focus and the emphasis was on making sure that we were grounded in our faith, but
Yeah.
also making sure that we were grounded in service and understanding the importance of making sure people could live and have equity in communities. So
Yes,
it kind of
ma'am.
started at the beginning for me.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that answer and the background.
You're welcome.
It's funny that you say you were the president of the Deltas. I hope to be a Delta when I grow up.
Oh, it's a wonderful thing to be.
Yes, ma'am.
In my mind, it's very focused. Matter of fact, I gave a speech yesterday on civil rights and the importance of making sure that we are actively involved in our communities. The Supreme Court justice, the female on Supreme Court justice is a Delta. I feel bad for her right now. She's not getting very far. We've had two people on the cabinet of the United States with presidents. The attorney general, the only Black attorney general was a Delta. So you'll see a lot of three surgeon generals for the United States were. So it's very grounded in faith and in the social action. So stick to that, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Good.
All right. Our next question is, can you share a moment when your faith, your professional role, and your sorority experience came together to shape how you led or served others?
Oh, um, yes, actually, I can kind of really clearly do that. When my time in office as president was difficult. There were a lot of challenges. I don't know if you know about Charlottesville and the riots in Charlottesville that
Yes,
happened
ma'am.
in that community. That happened the day after I was elected president. And it's when I got off the plane from wherever I was and got elected, my social action people said, "You're going to have to act quickly. We have a significant issue with Charlottesville. We've got to take some civil rights action now and some social rights action now." Um, we did that. I had some challenges with, I had two national past presidents who died the same day, at the same time as my mother. We had an employee, unfortunately, who embezzled funds from the organization, which was difficult to handle. Um, my first national convention for Delta, I had 20,000 people in New Orleans at a convention, and a day and a half in the convention, a tropical storm hit. And I had to shut the convention down, and I had 20,000 people I had to find some way to take care of. That was really a time when it was necessary for prayer. And then COVID hit, and
Yeah.
we dealt with the issues around COVID and the concerns that we had there in terms of how to manage the organization and still manage making sure that all of our all of our conventions still happen. And we had to really use innovation, the innovation that Black folks always use, to try and get through that and make sure that people were comfortable and okay, and that we still could take in members. It meant that I had to change everything we do in Delta Sigma Theta and try and do it all virtually with the team that we had. I took our soars to South Africa. We have several missions in South Africa. We got to South Africa, and after I got about 60 women there, then the South African Airlines went on strike. And
Mm.
I had to figure out how to get everybody home. That took a lot of prayer. It was an interesting time. We learned creativity. And I'll tell you, prayer um, is 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 my everyday tool for just surviving. I start with prayer in the
Yes,
morning.
ma'am.
Your life, I think, has to be a prayer all day. I talk to God a lot during the day, and prayer at night to kind of reflect on where you were, thank Him for the fact that you're still here, and ask Him for grace and blessings for the next day. That's what got me through. I have to be honest with you. Any time I have had an experience that's been difficult, I have learned to understand that God gave me that for a reason. It was either a
Yeah.
lesson in it for me to grow. It was a way for me to understand that I could strengthen who I was by my faith. I'm not sure how people survive without faith in God. When you even look outside at
I
the
wonder
beauty
that
of
too.
nature and see what God's done and given us just in the beauty of a day, I can't imagine how they survive or get by without having that faith or some faith in a
Yes, ma'am.
being for them that's there. So it was difficult as a Black woman working in corporate America. That has been and is always a challenge too, because people tend to underestimate who we are.
Yes,
What I
ma'am.
have found is that that is a blessing. I always tell my daughter when she was working, if they underestimate you and you just do the normal things that you do so successfully anyway, they're just going to think you're some kind of Wonder Woman because they had never expected. So allow people and don't be upset when you're underestimated because the gifts you have from God make you the strong person you are, which they never expect you to be.
Mm.
And so I will say probably the toughest time I had was when I was in office because we had so many tragedies to deal with. But the best time I had, we came out stronger. We added 20,000 more women to our ranks. We went to Selma, Alabama, and I asked for the to walk across the Edmund Pettus Bridge at I think it was the must have been the 50th anniversary of it or 45th. And I asked Soros to show up. We had 20,000 who came
That's a
to walk across
blessing.
that bridge with us. And that was a blessing. And nobody could figure out how we pulled that off. I said, I just asked him, but faith that we would be able to do that is what got me by. And I feel um, blessed to have God on my side every day. Even when he gives me a bad day, I know he did it for a reason. And there must be some lesson in there that I need to learn in order to prepare for the next day.
Yes, ma'am. It seems like you inherited your father's resilience.
Well, I believe I did. I believe I did. We didn't have a choice growing up. He he kind of forced it on us. He really believed. He told us we could do anything we wanted to if we just gave it a try.
Yes, ma'am.
And he did push that. I can remember when he wanted me to go and integrate this swimming pool that I did not want to. I don't think I can swim to this day. But he said, okay, I need you to go. This pool at Clay Park. I'll never forget that. He said, Urban League, we'll be with you. We'll be right behind you. I just need you to put your foot in the water. I think I was still in grade school when that happened, but I went, I did, I survived. And I think out of all of this, you learn a lot about yourself, what your strengths and weaknesses are. And if you're wise, you'll own your weaknesses and use other people to help you where you cannot help yourself. And you learn that you're as good as anybody, and you feel good about who you are and whose you are matters so much.
Yes, ma'am. Our next question is, many people have assumptions about sorority life. What is one misconception that you'd like to clear up for young people watching?
That it's one big party because it's not. It's a lot of work, and here's the difference between white fraternities and sororities and black fraternities and sororities. There tends to be, and white fraternities and sororities they do good things, but they also have a lot of fun, but they also don't stick together after they've graduated for the most part. Those college years, those party college years are what they focus on. In the black fraternities and sororities, while we do, you step, everybody loves to see you doing that, but that is such a tiny part of what you do. The focus really is social action, community service, and a focus on your faith, because we're all founded on Christian principles, which we bring up. And the community work is most important, and an emphasis and a focus on keeping your grades up, because we've got grade point averages that you have to keep. When sororities and fraternities after you leave your college years, that really is, or if you may come in as an alumni soror, you may come into a graduate chapter, but that's the time when the work really happens. And there is a lot of work. I think the misconception is that it really is focused on social and having fun. And you see that on social media. Sometimes that's all you see. And sometimes all you see are the things where hazing's going on. And we have a real focus on trying not to haze. We have very strong penalties when that happens. And we've tried a lot to make sure that people see the other side, and the majority of what fraternities and sororities about, and the social action that they do, the community service that they do, the caring for others, the voting registration, food banks, those kinds of things. And we try to advertise those things also as much as we can. In the case of Delta, we really do try to focus on getting women in seats where they need to be. Shirley Chisholm always said, if they don't give you a seat at the table, pull up a folding chair. Make sure you're engaged in your community and what's going on. Make sure you're focused on the things that are important to other people so that you can do there. But I think that party aspect of it is something that people see on social media, and they seem to think that's what it's all about. And that's an image that we really try hard to fight.
Yes, ma'am. With everything you're involved in, how do you stay grounded and consistent in your faith walk?
Daily prayer, sometimes hourly prayer, depending on how much I need during the day. Um, I have, I think you have to have that grounding somebody to get by some days. And I have a strong, my husband and I have been married now for, this will be our 55th year. And we have 2 children and 5 grandchildren, and that we are very blessed that they're all doing extremely well. I think being founded in family and friends is most important, being grounded in your faith. And at this point, Anaya, it kind of comes naturally to me, I think. I really found my way with Jesus when I was about 3 years old, and I have been focused there ever since. And I will share with you, I don't, and I grew up as a Catholic, and I really wanted to go into the ministry, or to go into the role of being very involved in a Christian life that really was focused on religion, and being a nun. Even my mom said, no, that's not the way I need you to go. You really need to have a family and do the kinds of things that you need to do in the community service. But that grounding is just something that at this point comes natural to me. And I think you'll find the same in terms of how I get grounded in faith. It's just a daily walk.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Your family has deep roots in Roswell, Georgia, and Zion Missionary Baptist Church. Could you
Yes.
share a bit of your family's history here and how that legacy shaped you to who you are today and the way you serve today?
Well, as I said, I grew up as a Catholic. My husband's Episcopalian, and when the kids were young, that's where they were. We kind of found Zion through friends who went to Zion. Gosh, we've been at Zion for a very long time. We're not there now, but we were there for a long time, and I was actively engaged in working in Zion and staying there. It's a great community. I think. It's strong in terms of the mission that Zion has. We truly enjoy, we're not members there right now, but we truly enjoyed our time that we were there. Reverend Lewis was a very good friend when I was at Zion. What part of my business life, I do restructures for churches. I help organizations, businesses, churches go in and identify when they have issues or concerns. I go in and assess organizations and help them figure out how to make themselves better and how they can grow. In the case of churches that I've worked with, is how they can grow the church family. And Reverend Lewis and I had talked to sometime, and some of the deacons said, "Hey, how about doing some leadership development training at Zion and helping to take a look at the organization and making it stronger. So I did that. I did a church survey. We got everybody in the church involved in doing a survey, provided the church the information, did some leadership training for the leaders. I took um, business principles. And churches and church leaders don't want to say they're a business. They want to say they're a church. I said, no, no, no. It's the same principle. So what I did and what I do is in the training that I do for churches, I've done Baptist church, Episcopal, and AME churches. I will take the principles of leadership for business and apply them to Bible scripture. And you can find a way that they match up very clearly. If there's a principle on leadership that I use in my business courses, I can
Mm.
find that same principle in biblical scripture and use that in terms of training and working with the church. So I did that work for Zion and did an analysis of things it could do to improve, could get more focus on the congregation. So I got very heavily involved in working with Pastor Lewis at the time and helping him move forward and try and strengthen Zion. So my time there was it was interesting because not everybody some people are stayed in their ways, so they don't necessarily want to change and move out of the way. I've always done something. That's a phrase that I always tell even my employees. I don't ever want to hear you say, if I ask you a question, why are we doing something this way? If you say these 6 words, because we've always done it that way, I'll say, well, that is no reason. That's no reason to do something. So, so if you can't give me a reason on why we would do it this way when there are so many other ways to do it, or you're not always right. The leader is not always right. Leaders always have to listen to other voices to make sure that they're getting a diversity of opinion before they make decisions on change. So anyhow, so we focused on that. But I love that church. Zion is a phenomenal church, and I know it's going to continue to grow uh, with your dad and with others there as well.
Yes, ma'am. Well, Miss Smith, thank you for your sharing your story, your wisdom, and your heart with us today. Zion family, we hope this spotlight encourages you in a way it encouraged us. I hope you have a great night.
Thank you, Ayana. I appreciate your time.